So I just finished this episode of Dragon Ball Super, and there's a couple of things that come to mind. Number one, the animation of this episode looked absolutely beautiful. Number two, this concludes the arc, the Zamasu arc. Number three, the retcon of the earring fusion. And number four, the Spirit Bomb sword from Trunks. So, this episode is very mixed. What I'm getting at is I'm on the fence about this episode. On one hand, I love the action, I love the battle, I love the animation, and even the art. I loved this episode. It was a good, entertaining episode. On the other hand, as a person that has rewatched Dragon Ball Z quite a bit, I remember the argument on how the earring fusion was permanent. It was like a perfect fusion, it was a permanent fusion. And right at the beginning of this episode, it stated that there could only be a fusion with the earrings that could only last an hour. For instance, the earrings last an hour and only Kai's can be permanently fused together. So what this means is that Goku and Vegeta's fusion would not be permanent. So it rewrites the entire meaning behind the earrings that we found out about in Dragon Ball Z. And this is something that kind of bugged me, but that wasn't the biggest thing. It was also the Spirit Bomb sword that popped up, and that right there, I don't even know how to feel about that, because, I mean, Trunks is a strong character. I'm not going to say he's not. He's a strong character, he's powerful, and we do know that half Saiyan, half human, they're incredibly powerful. They have a lot of potential, and they have a lot of potential to be even stronger than Goku and Vegeta. We have seen it time and time again. I mean, look, Pan as a baby is being able to fly. We know for a fact Gohan is incredibly gifted. If he would have trained, he would have surpassed Goku and Vegeta. So we do know that, you know, half human, half Saiyans are very powerful, you know, half-breeds. So, it's not something that you could say came out of nowhere. Trunks being this powerful makes sense, but overall the way it was executed in this episode makes me question how it really happened. But before we get into that, though, let's talk about the earring situation. So, the details we get in this episode reveals that the earring, it'll only allow someone to fuse for an hour, if you're not a Kai. And thanks to Goku and Vegeta fusing together and then using Super Saiyan Blue, it made it to where the earrings didn't last a full hour. For instance, they only lasted maybe like 10 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. They lasted not nearly the full time of what they would have had if they didn't go Super Saiyan Blue. So what this means is that the earrings have been nerfed to shit. They have been completely fucking nerfed. Because everything we know after Dragon Ball Z, we thought and assumed that the earrings were like the ultimate fusion. It's the perfect fusion because it's a permanent fusion. They become two people into one, and it's the perfect fusion. And that would mean that they could reach new levels of power. And this was never stated in Dragon Ball Z that there was a time limit. And now, I could be wrong here, okay? We do know Supreme Kai and Kibito, those two, you know, they didn't really know much about how everything works with the Kais. Because, you know, Supreme Kai was by himself for a very long time because of what, you know, Bibidi did and how Buu was going on his rampage. We know Supreme Kai was kind of like disconnected. He didn't know a whole lot about being a Kai, like certain little details. But when Elder Kai finally came out of the Z-Sword, he told us. I remember, if I'm correct, he's the one that told Supreme Kai and Kibito, and he got them to fuse, and then he told them it was permanent, and then they found out that Goku and Vegeta could fuse too. And if I'm correct, or if I could be remembering it wrong, but I think Supreme Kai is the one that told Goku and Vegeta that they could be able to fuse and last, and it would be like a permanent choice, or, you know, they'd be permanently fused. So I need to go back and rewatch that scene. I definitely do. But overall, though, this episode rewrites a major plot point of Dragon Ball Z. And the explanation for why Goku and Vegeta was even able to defuse in the first place was thanks to being inside of Buu's body. That's what we all assume. The reason for that is because Buu is a magical being, and because of being inside of Buu's body, since he has magic, it probably diffused the fusion, which is also magic. It just completely separated it, and so that's what we all assumed at the time. That's even what Goku and Vegeta assumed, and so that kind of topic was completely dropped. But at this time, time, though, this episode lets us know that the reason why Goku and Vegeta defused in the first place was thanks to the time limit, the 1 hour time limit. So, in a way, this episode stays consistent with the writing of Dragon Ball Z because of how Goku and Vegeta defused, but at the same time, the way it was handled was not done right. Because, I mean, the way Supreme Kai learned about the permanent fusion to the, you know, the earrings, how we found out in the past, and also how we found out, it just wasn't handled properly. Because even if Supreme Kai didn't know, Elder Kai should have known. Elder Kai, of all people, should have known because he's old, he's wise, and he has a lot of information about different things of how the world works. So he's definitely someone that's not brain dead. He's a smart individual. So I highly doubt he did not know about the 1 hour time limit with the earrings. So that's my question I have right now. That's my biggest concern with that topic. Now, speaking of Vegito in general, Vegito, it seemed like he was powerful, like he was straight up whooping the shit out of Zamasu throughout the episode, but it felt like he got more of a nerf than anything else, because, I mean, he did joke around, he was acting cocky, like Vegito did with the Super Buu saga, but overall, it seemed like Vegito put more effort into the fight, which kind of makes a little bit sense when you think about it, because you gotta remember, the reason why Vegito held back against Super Buu was because he was wanting to save everybody inside of Buu, and so that's kind of why he didn't finish off Buu instantly. It was because he wanted to save people, and he wanted to be Exor for he could get inside him and save them. But after this, we now know that Vegito wouldn't hold back. He's going all in. He's going to be attacking, you know, Zamasu with his full force. And it seemed like Zamasu was holding his own and all that, which goes to show you his power. But at the same time, though, it looks like Vegito kind of got a nerf. Because, I mean, how powerful Vegito was, and how he didn't really need to go Super Saiyan. But now that he goes Super Saiyan Blue, we know he has to have a ridiculous power level. I'm just like, you're telling me that this man, it seemed like overall, he was more powerful. Like, he was wearing the shit out of Zamasu, beating the fucking shit out of him. But overall, it seemed kind of like almost even. Not completely even, but almost even. So it felt like Vegito got a nerf, too. Besides just the earrings, I felt Vegito got a nerf in this episode, which kind of disappoints me a little bit. But overall, though, I love seeing some of the moves that Vegito used. I mean, like the final Kamehameha, that was badass. Oh my god, that's badass. And then the Spirit Sword, badass as fuck as well. I didn't expect to see that move ever again either in this series. So, Spirit Sword, Final Kamehameha, I mean, just overall, just seeing Vegito again, it makes me very happy. I'm glad to see this. And finding out now that I guess that the earring can only last an hour, or maybe probably 10 to 30 minutes since they go Super Saiyan Blue, this might mean that we might see Vegito more often in the future, because, I mean, if there's a timer on it, that means that there's a possibility Vegito will be a reoccurring, you know, character throughout the series of Dragon Ball Super. So, getting off of that, though, let's talk about the situation with the Spirit Bomb Sword from Trunks. So, this is the part that really bugs me. It's actually, I can look past the Vegito and earring stuff because it kind of stays consistent, but the Spirit Bomb Sword, it kind of agitates me for one big reason. Everybody started giving up their energy for, like, no reason at all. Like, everybody just started having this aura, like, this ki just coming out of them, which was very similar to Trunks after he made his revelation of how, you know, he accepts his weaknesses. You notice everybody started glowing and stuff, and then their power started going towards Trunks. Trunks made a Spirit Bomb, and Vegeta and Goku realized, and they give their power over to Trunks as well, and then he cut Zamasu in half. So, this entire situation, it doesn't make sense to me. Now, the Spirit Bomb thing, I'm fine with. I mean, Trunks has shown that he's a quick learner. I mean, Gallic Gun, Kamehameha, Masenko. I mean, this man has used constantly a lot of different types of moves from the different characters throughout Dragon Ball Z. So I'm not going to fault him and say that, you know, the reason how he knows, you know, Spirit Bomb is kind of stupid. I mean, he never probably got shown by Goku because we never saw it throughout the series of Dragon Ball Z. But at the very least, we do know Trunks is a fast learner. So maybe he might have had a conversation with Goku behind the scenes or something. I have no idea. But the big thing is that Trunks gaining that power out of nowhere kind of bugs me, because it wasn't like he had an emotional transformation. It wasn't like a Super Saiyan transformation. It wasn't nothing like that. You had it to where everybody just started having their ki, like, radiating, and it looked similar to Trunks, and then all their power went to Trunks. So it doesn't really make any sense at all what happened in that scene. And then when Trunks, you know, used it, you saw the Spirit Bomb condense down into a sword. That was badass, but I still am like, this man, just made a Spirit Bomb, like, in a matter of a couple seconds. Like, it was quick as fuck, okay? Goku, at the end of Dragon Ball Z, had to gather the energy from everyone on the planet Earth, and that was a hard feat. And even with all that energy from the Earthlings, Goku still struggled with Kid Buu. It was still a hard-fought battle. Even with a full power Spirit Bomb from every living being on Earth, Goku still had a little bit of an issue with Kid Buu. Now, with this, with majority of humanity being killed on the planet, them giving all their energy up to Trunks, it doesn't make much sense how someone like Zamasu could be killed with that type of power, even with Goku and Vegeta's abilities or their ki being added onto the Spirit Bomb. There's just no way that was enough to be able to take down Zamasu, because once again, I want to emphasize, every human being had to be used to take down Kid Buu at the end of Dragon Ball Z. The energy we saw come into Trunks' sword, which was a Spirit Bomb, was from the human beings on the planet, but majority of them are pretty much fucking dead. There's probably maybe only 5% of humanity left on Earth, so 5% of humans giving all their power over to Trunks, along with Goku and Vegeta, that just doesn't fill the gap, because Zamasu is way higher level than Buu ever was. He is a way higher level. Because of Vegeta's fight with him, we know this is a higher level fight. But the other thing, too, on top of that, is how Zamasu, when he got defeated like that, I mean, with this ability, it really makes me question, and it's kind of ironic, actually, because as we know, the Spirit Bomb attacks evil beings, and with Zamasu kind of thinking he's good, like he believes deep down he is doing the right thing, it's kind of funny how this man got killed by a Spirit Bomb. It really is. It's kind of ironic, but it's a message or some meaning here, but it just doesn't sit right with me, the way Trunks is able to use the Spirit Bomb like that in that quick a fashion. Well, no, I'm fine with Trunks using the Spirit Bomb. I'm not fine with Trunks gaining the Spirit Bomb that quickly in a matter of a couple seconds, while Goku had to charge it throughout multiple episodes to be able to use it against Kid Buu. So that's the point I want to, state there. Enough with that. Let's talk about the other things here. So, one other big thing, Zamasu's body, okay? So, we get clarification of what was going on. Zamasu's body was kind of like in disarray. You had to wear like it was breaking down or whatever. As we know, Goku Black, he was immortal. He was Son Goku. He was a Saiyan. He was someone that was not a god or immortal. And as we know, Zamasu, the one that, asked for immortality, he was immortal and he fused to Goku Black. And we kind of get clarified what happened to the body. For instance, did, like this new Zamasu, like, Zamasu Black become fully immortal, or was there something else going on here? And apparently, half the body was immortal and the other half was not, which kind of makes sense when you think about it, because both beings, they fuse into one and they take on traits from each other, but also it's kind of like they're both half of each person. And seeing how Zamasu had half of his body dying while the other half is fine, it does make sense. It legit makes sense. And so, even though Zamasu was immortal, the other half inside of him was allowing him to take damage and still possibly die, because he did fuse with a mortal. So when you saw his body breaking down or getting injured, was thanks to that. Thanks to, that part of him being mortal, while the other half of him was immortal. So that was kind of the key to victory, for instance. Because Zamasu fused together, it fucked him over to begin with. And it's kind of like Zamasu suicided himself. If you really do think about it, Zamasu killed himself up against Vegito and Trunks because he decided to fuse with his other self. So yeah, I mean, Zamasu wouldn't have been able to die. He wouldn't have been able to die if he would have not fused. Now, besides all that, let's talk about Trunks defeating the main villain. So, personally, I'm actually happy with this. There's one reason why, and the big reason why, is because out of the countless people that beat main villains throughout the series, normally it's Goku, or most of the time it is Goku that defeats the main villain of a said arc. And the only time this has ever happened without Goku was the Cell Saga. Think about the Cell Saga and what Gohan stood for, what he had to do. He stood up against Cell. Yes, he had the help of Goku, but he still stood up and he fought Cell and took him down. Now, with this, it's very, very similar to that. And what I want to get at is that this arc is kind of a reflection to the Android Saga, or Cell Saga, of Dragon Ball Z. Because think about this, okay? Future Trunks was introduced in the Cell Saga / Android Saga. This, saga, in Dragon Ball Super is like the second big arc. I mean, I'm not counting like, Frieza and, the Beerus introduction as two different arcs. I count that as one big central arc. I really am. So this is kind of like the next main big arc with a main villain. And so with this here, I mean, this is kind of like the Android Saga, like the next introduction of it, and Trunks being introduced at this, it makes kind of sense. It's like, the opposite of what happened in the Cell Saga. This time, it's Trunks' turn to actually protect and win against the main villain instead of Gohan. And it makes sense, because as we know, Gohan and Trunks have a lot of connection with each other. We know this for a fact because of the movie The History of Trunks, but also just the way they, they were constantly fighting together in their, timeline, and then now seeing how Trunks kind of gained the mantle from Gohan, adult Gohan, and now he is defeating the evil in his world. I respect that, and I like that, because it's not just, Goku's son winning and destroying evil. Vegeta's son is now doing something like that. Vegeta's son stood up and defeated an evil of his timeline. So, it's very similar to that. It's very, very similar to how Gohan took down Cell. It's similar to how Trunks took down Zamasu. So, I think that's where the writing was going. It was trying to imply that, there's a lot of similarities here to with the Cell Saga. I mean, look, father, son, Gallic Gun. That right there, that was a fucking epic moment with last week's episode. And then now we see this. It makes so much sense that Trunks won. And the message of it's to say that it's very similar to how Gohan's fight was with Cell. So yeah, I like that. I mean, Trunks even got some character development. He said that, yes, he has his weaknesses, he's weak and all that, and it's kind of like him accepting all the faults with himself, and it also goes back to his earlier character throughout the series, when he blamed himself constantly for the death of Gohan, as he constantly dragged that with him. The reason why he transformed in the first place was because of Gohan's death in his timeline, and he blamed himself because he was weak, he couldn't stand and fight with Gohan, and seeing how he finally accepts that he's weak, he has weaknesses, and he kind of moves past them, it's like saying he's finally putting that final bow on top of that character development. So very good on you, Trunks. Very, very good on you for that character development. So yeah, that's about it when it comes to this episode of Dragon Ball Super. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.